All right, so far in this unit, we've been looking at two transformations so far. We saw translation when you move sideways, up or down. Then we saw reflection when you reflect, right? When you flip things over. Now we're going to move into what we call rotation. So the instructions are going to be the same. Find the coordinates of the vertices of each figure after the given transformation. Now, for question number 9 on our notes, we're going to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Okay, so what do I mean with rotating 90 degrees in counterclockwise? Let me make this a little visual. So we start with coordinate plane. We have some points. We have a figure, right? We have the corners E, F, D, G, right? Any order. I could say D, E, F, G, whatever. I have four corners, which we call vertex. Singular is vertex, plural is vertices. Now rotate is kind of like how the clock goes. Let me imagine a picture, which I'm gonna call E prime, F prime, D prime, G prime, and let me have it go around. Kind of like how the clock goes. Look, it's going around. It's going counter. It's going with the clock, right? So we call that clockwise. It's going with the clockwise. Now, what if it was going the other way? Then we call that counterclockwise. So if you go the direction of the clock, you go clockwise. If you go the opposite direction, you go counterclockwise. So it makes sense that on my instructions, I asked you guys rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise. So that's what it says there, counterclockwise. So let me take a look at this way instead. Let's say I grab my picture on number 9. I'm gonna rotate it. So that means that here I cannot turn the screen, but in your case, you can literally turn the screen. So what I'm going to do in my case, I'm just gonna rotate the picture, right? I'm going clockwise. That's going clockwise. The opposite way is counterclockwise. So you gotta know whether you're going clockwise or counterclockwise. Now I'm gonna use my axis, the x-axis and the y-axis. If I if I go clockwise, I go here and then I just go clockwise. Look, my axes look the same. My x and my y-axis, they change names, but they look pretty much the same. That's 90 degrees clockwise. I go 90 more, 90 more, about there, and then finally 90 degrees. I went 360 degrees clockwise. Now my homework here, my example here, it says rotation 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, so I'm just gonna go here. Again, in your case, flip the screen. So your homework, I'm gonna go against the clock 90 degrees. Boom, it's right there. You guys see my picture? Remember how originally it was up here and then he moved down. Now for this one, I'm gonna come out with the coordinates. Okay, so I'm gonna come out with the coordinates and I'm gonna get D prime, E prime, F prime, and G prime. I want you to look at the axis, but ignore the labels that it has on the axis. So let me ignore the labels. This is going to be my x-axis like it usually is, and this is going to be my y-axis like it usually is. Now, you see D, because I rotated, that's my D prime. What are the coordinates of D prime now? Well, the coordinates are -1, -4. Okay. How about E prime? You see where E is? So that's my E prime. What are the coordinates of E prime now? Well, -4, -4. Okay. How about F prime? You see where F is? So that's my F prime. What are the coordinates of F prime? -5, -2. Good. How about G prime? You see where G is? So that's G prime. The coordinates of this one are -2, -2. You guys might be like, why? What happened really? Why was D called D prime? What was why E? Because originally, these were the points. But notice when I flipped the 90 degrees uh, counterclockwise, that's how I came out with those points. And that's how I came out with my coordinates. Good, that was fun. Now let's take a look at question number 10. I'm gonna rotate this 90 degrees clockwise. So I'm going with the clock 90 degrees. Good. So I'm gonna go here. Again, ignore the labels on the axis. I'm gonna ignore my labels. So this is gonna become X as it usually is, and this is gonna become Y as it usually is. And I'm gonna get my coordinates of N prime, M prime, and L prime. What are the coordinates of N prime? Where's N right now? What are the coordinates of that point? This is N prime. Well, that's -1, -1. How about M prime? This is where M finished. And I say finish because remember how I already rotated 90 clockwise? This is M, so that's M prime. My coordinates of M prime are going to be forward -1. How about L prime? Well, that's where L finished, so that's going to be L prime. And my coordinates of that one are forward -3. So for this part, just do that. Again, I had to flip it. I had to flip the image. You guys can see how I literally flipped the image. Right, I was rotating the image. Like it started right there, but I went 90 degrees clockwise. Now be careful. I say 90 degrees counterclockwise or I say 90 degrees clockwise. When I say on the instructions, you're gonna do some of them that said 180, but I don't tell you which direction. Well, it doesn't matter. You go 180 clockwise or 180 counterclockwise, it's the same thing. So rotation of 180, I don't have to specify which direction. Now be careful because 90 clockwise, I can also call that 270 counterclockwise. Okay, I don't want to confuse you more. So let me erase this. You have that on your notes. Let's take a look at question 11 and 12. How am I going to ask for the rule here? Write a rule to describe each transformation. Today, we're dealing with rotation only, so it makes sense that all my rules for today are going to be rotation. But the quiz on Friday, you're going to have all four transformations there. So get used to it. Now, some people think, like transformation when it comes to rotation, some people think, oh, that looks like reflection. Well, not really. Not really. Now I'm going to show you guys why not. Why not? Okay. Look at the points H and H prime. Find the point that it's right in between them. You guys would be like, well, that's that point. Oh, actually, let me go right instead. Look at the points I and I prime. Well, that's the point in the middle. Look at the points J and J prime. If you were to find a point, it's that point in the middle. Now, in rotation, in reality, what happened is that the midpoints is going to be the centered of rotation. I was rotating everything about the origin, but I could have chosen any point to rotate, any point. So it's not going to be that. Not going to be translation. Now, how am I going to do this? Well, this is what I'm going to do. I see the finish line. I see the ending. Let me go over. Let me go over my point. My question here it is, I'm gonna flip the image and I literally marked my ending one, the blue one. You see that the primes, because my mind, I'm gonna start with the black one. How much do I have to rotate to finish right there? So I could grab the image. I could rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. So if I go 90 degrees clockwise, boom. I'm still not there yet. Okay, 90 degrees clockwise did not work. How about 90 degrees more? Right, I'm going 90 degrees clockwise. Boom, it's right there. Yep, that's where I finished. That's where I wanted the black to finish. So I rotated 180 clockwise. Okay, let me come back from the beginning. Let me start here. I said 180 clockwise. What if I would have got 180 counterclockwise? So against the clock, there's 90 degrees and then 90 more. Oops. Yeah, that works too. Again, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, when it is rotation of 180, it doesn't matter whether you go clockwise or counterclockwise. So the rule obviously has to be rotation because we're dealing with rotation today. So I'm gonna say on the first thing, I'm gonna choose rotation. Get used to seeing what you need because on the quiz on Friday, you're gonna have all four transformations. So far, we have seen three. You're gonna have all four, and you have to decide which one it is. So this one is rotation. How many degrees did you rotate? In which direction? Remember, if it's 90 degrees, it matters whether you have to say clockwise or counterclockwise. When it's 180, you don't have to say it. So I'm just gonna type in 180. I don't need you guys to type in the degree symbol or write the word degrees. Just rotation 180. I understand. You rotated 180 degrees. Okay, let's take a look at question number 12. I'm gonna mark in my screen, I'm gonna mark this blue thing because that's the ending one. I know the one at the beginning is the black because my letters are normal, SRT. And I know this blue one, which I highlighted in red, is the ending one because I see S prime, R prime, T prime. So that's where I have to finish. So I'm gonna rotate it. If I go clockwise, I go 90 degrees. No, it doesn't work. How about 90 more? No, it doesn't work. How about 90 more? Boom, it does work. Cool. So I had to go 270 clockwise. Wait a minute. Let me start from the beginning, okay? What if instead of going 270-degree clockwise, what if I would have gone counterclockwise? Just 90 degrees counterclockwise. Well, that works as well. So on my homework, the first thing I'm going to choose is rotation. So when they're asking for the rule, I'm going to call this rotation. Remember, you're going to see four choices. We choose rotation. And then for the typing, which of the two that you want to do? 270 clockwise or 90 counterclockwise, whichever one you want. In my case, to write less, or actually just to do my smaller numbered, I'm gonna write 90 counterclockwise all together. Counterclockwise. Now you guys forget, oh, how do I type in clock? How do I spell clockwise? How do I spell counterclockwise? How do I spell? Well, the questions from the first five, right? When I gave you guys the directions, you can see there. You see the spelling there. Again, it didn't fit them here, but on the computer it will fit 90 counterclockwise. Now, if you're right, instead of 90 counterclockwise, you say 270. Let me write it here at the bottom. You say 270 clockwise. Yeah, that works too. Whichever one you want. 90 counterclockwise or 270 clockwise. Notice my writing on my letters were lowercase, so don't forget that. And again, when you're going counterclockwise or clockwise, you have to specify unless it is 180. For 180, you don't have to specify, like it happened in question number 11.